Good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6:01. Start with roll call. Stuart Lander,
Here.
Kate Massonotti.
Here.
Paula Whitford,
Yeah.
James DeCivo,
Here.
and I, Carol Vetter, I'm here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to begin with comments from the community. I'm going to turn it over to James.
All right, we're going to start community comments. Please limit your comments to approximately 5 minutes. We're going to start with Mary Kutcher.
Hello, I'm Mary Kutcher. I'm a teacher at the high school and community member. Both my kids graduated from here, lived here a while. I just wanted to say that it's extremely disappointing that at a time in our district where we finally have some stability with our district superintendent, stability with our administrators at our buildings, stability with our student population, that the town council has decided to cause all this unnecessary upheaval and turmoil and turn us back into a mess again for no reason, because they have $24 million in their reserve budget and they don't want to give us 1.5 of that. So that is their choice to do that. But in doing that, they are really taking it out on the families and children in this town. We have so much to look forward to. We have a new building, we have a new field, so many places to showcase our students' talents and work that they do. And the town council wants to make that all distraction and take away what we have accomplished. And it's unfortunate that they're not prioritizing us. So I thank you for trying to do what you can to get them to change their minds about this. And I hope that the parents are paying attention to this and are hopefully going to come out and let them all know what they think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Next, we have Katie Garvin.
Sorry, I'm really loud anyway. So hi, I'm Katie Garvin. Got 2 kids in the district and just want to thank you all for all the time and all the energy. I'm going to echo the previous statements that I'm pretty frustrated that you all have to go through this process yet again of saying maybe it's going to have to be this and maybe it's going to have to be that. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir, but in hopes that other people who maybe haven't tuned in yet will turn out next week when we need to get more supporters and people will write emails and letters. Obviously, the idea of any cuts to our elementary school arts is just gut-wrenching to even imagine. We all know what attendance data looks like, and we can talk to elementary school students all day long, and they will tell you that their specials are often what get them in the building. It would be magical if every child loved pure academics, but we all know that's just not the reality for every child. And it's the art classes and the gym classes and the music classes that really light them up. And our UA teachers are also the people that get to then know them across 5 years in their buildings. And I work as a school counselor. Sometimes we really, really need those people who have watched a child from kindergarten through in our buildings, 5th grade. So sorry, 6 years. we need those people who can then speak to how much this kid has grown and changed, or, you know, how they're struggling. And oftentimes that's where we really draw on our UA teachers and their experience. So huge advocate for everything in the elementary school. I also tried really hard to get my almost 14-year-old to come and speak for himself, but that was not happening. Those who know my child know that that was probably not going to happen. But we did have a long chat the other day about, I said, I want you to go back and imagine Broad Rock as like a high school model. I want you to imagine like walking into that building when you were so nervous. Dr. Borden can attest, this was like a kid who was scared of his own shadow. And the transformation from elementary school to middle school, we really think is credited to the team model. He got so connected with his teachers. He was able to connect with the peers that were on the team. It was far less daunting to be in the mix of 90 kids versus 180 kids. And that has just gone through each of the years. He's going to graduate from 8th grade in June and is super excited to come to the high school. But the growth that we've seen in him as a human being, we credit that almost entirely to how connected he has gotten with his team. He loves the way that the teachers connect with each other. We talk often about how fun it is when the teams can do things together. The teachers work so collaboratively. So when I even heard that that was, I mean, not that a change that anyone wants to see, but that it was like potentially a necessity to see if we could go to a model that, you know, feels super outdated and isn't the way most middle schools are doing it now. From my own perspective, I was like, oh man, that's a huge cut to something that from a mental health perspective is how the teachers get to know the kids well enough to really keep an eye on them at obviously a super vital time. So I just want to say we're doing our best to get the word out to parents across the grade levels. We're trying really hard to get people to write letters and to write emails and get out there next week to hopefully have people's voices be heard. We're super strong advocates for, I don't know what your purpose is in building a town if you don't want to focus the money on your students and on your families because they're the future of your town. So hopefully we can be on the other end of this very soon, but thank you for all your energy and your time and your patience with, you know, having yet another go around with this, whatever, 6 years in a row for some of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Would anybody else like to come to the podium and speak? I do want to give some added information. Originally, there was a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, April 1st. That meeting has been canceled, but we do have joint hearings with the town council on April 6th and April 7th, Monday and Tuesday of next week. So I just wanted everybody to have accurate information. And with that, we will close public comment. Okay, next up, we have the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to school committee business. A4A, discussion implications of town council preliminary budget adoption. So I'm going to ask the superintendent to go over his methodology for preparing the budget matrix that we have tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone, members of the community, members of the committee, members of the team. So where we stand, or a recap for those who are just tuning in, is that in our FY 27 preliminary request, we are asking the town, or we asked the town for an additional $2.5 million to go towards operations. In addition to this, we also knew that in our operating budget, we would be needing to use fund balance in in the amount of $1 million. Normally, this would have been what we were trying to do with our fund balance, is shift it towards our capital improvement projects. However, given the unexpected reduction in state aid, given the current configuration of FY 26 of a $600,000 one-time appropriation, a healthcare cost in both medical and dental that far exceeds even our insurer's initial guidance of, I believe it's 12.4% on healthcare and 8.5% on dental. A short and unexpected decrease in state aid stemming from a reduction of high-cost special education, as well as how the state factors in community wealth, more than likely based off of the new tax appropriations, that we faced this outcome, or we face this deficit. Additionally, in our proposed budget, I will remind folks that additional in the healthcare that I mentioned, the original budgeting was 10% for healthcare and 5% for dental. And on the Friday before, once the budget was already submitted, the Friday before we met in our joint meeting at 6 p.m., we got notice of that, which is an approximately $400,000 increase. So ultimately, if we had those figures ahead of time, we would have needed to ask the town for $2.9 million. Their response in the preliminary budget was to give us an additional $1 million of the requested 2.5. Accordingly, last meeting, because we are, as alluded to in public comment and previous presentations, we are starting to see a leveling off of sharp enrollment declines. We are beating the NASDAQ prediction for this academic year. And we had already factored into our FY 27 proposal some staffing reductions that are due to attrition and or that were due to breakage. However, that is not enough yet, and we'll continue to monitor that. So what I reviewed last meeting was things primarily outside of major personnel decisions, that we dug into the BEP, which again, Rhode Island general law works in concert with the rules and regulations that come about from the implementation of those laws. And then the BEP, or Basic Education Plan, sets the minimal amount of whether something is sufficient in the eyes of the Department of Education. We need to be in compliance with all three of them. However, I framed it in terms of BEP because when districts often have to go to other means in order to secure funds, they use the BEP as that basic sufficient, are we making sufficient efforts? And so as such, we discussed a litany of programs, both that are required and are not required to varying degrees, in which we discussed programming in the arts, world languages, athletics, after-school opportunities, supplemental support services, technology, and some other aspects that we were looking to revisit tonight, as the committee was appreciative of outlining those options. However, we did not have any cost certainty or even ballpark that were out there. So for ever since, my team and I have been working on trying to secure some of that budget piece, as well as make sure that we are clearly communicating the impact of changes, not only onto personnel, but in terms of our mission, the equity audit, as well as then obviously all being done in service of our students. So what you have before you tonight, and I would ask that if we could project the FY 27 budget matrix. This is a working document that ultimately attempts to try and respond to the committee's feedback from last meeting and put some hard numbers to those things that are there, as well as put them in terms of an impact to our mission. I will say again, this is a working document. This is not finalized. This is not something that the committee has put a gavel down on, nor will it be for quite some time until a final budget is adopted. But again, these are some of the conditions that we are facing. As I may have alluded to, but now have more concrete numbers. All of these are just the worst ideas. Each one of these is something we don't want to do. Every one of these cuts is a potential reason to leave the district, not stay in it. And so I ask the community and thank the community that's here for their understanding and consideration that again, the difficult choices that we face. Making this even more difficult is that ultimately, even if we were to select all of these bad ideas, all of these added up equate to only $1.1 million of savings on our bottom line. As such, we would still need to go into fund balance or take other actions that are not included on this list. So again, as we go through and as the committee goes and discusses and we take things off the table, I would just say in a practical sense is that everything that's taken off, we then need to find something else somewhere. And then we need to revisit, if it's not from fund balance, it's going to be from potentially other things that have not yet, that either we haven't thought about or that are choices that we 1000% don't want to make, but will be required to do. I'm happy to follow the committees. I know you haven't had time outside of the last memo, but to go through this in any detail, again, we wanted to get as much information and certainty as possible. So I'm happy to go through this either one item at a time or highlight some things in there that my team and I came up with in terms of some new aspects that given the amount of deficit that we're facing, that we figured we would add to the conversation now, and we'll continue to do so. So I'll defer to the committee's choice of how they'd like to go through it all, or how you'd like to proceed.
Ask a question. When around the cost of healthcare, the medical and dental benefits, do we have a dollar as to how much of an increase that particular, just that would be? And then along with that, the reduction of state aid.
So health and dental increase alone.
Yep.
And
just the reduction of state aid. Because it strikes me that that's a large driver, right, of where we're trying to recoup. So the fact that we would be digging into our programs to make up that, to pay for that, that's where I mean, I struggle with looking at programs for anything right now, but in particular, I would like to think that in a conversation with the town council, that this isn't like, oh, we have superfluous programs, we have superfluous staff, we have, all these bells and whistles that we don't have that. And it's about the benefits, it's about the medical costs. And if they could tap into their little kitty
So
and pony up.
it looks like for about 400,000 in state aid less, but then on the federal and state grants, it's another 150 or so, which we kept federal even, so that would be the state grants. So we're looking at over 500,000 decrease from the state aid. The other thing is we had 608,000 given to us last year, so we're right off in the whole 608. So you're right there, you're at 1.1 million on the revenue side before we even talk about the expense side. So you're absolutely right. we're starting from below zero. If so, level funding doesn't even take into that 1.1% on the revenue side that, so it's a perfect storm. It's, level funding when your revenue is even is bad enough, but when you're already behind the gate 1.1 million, it 1 million's not enough. So,
So I have so the reduction in state aid was approximately $400,000. On the on the 10% increase, our health was $531,818. We'll need to add another 2.1% to that, and dental increase was approximately $69,000. So 1 million. But using the previous trust figures, which are percentage points behind, we need to recalculate those in order to get to again, on our preliminary budget that was submitted, we used 10 and 5. We need to boost that up to 12.4, I believe, and 8.1.
The answer is not going to get lower. It's just going to go higher.
One-
But it's
1.3.
just, it's nice to have the actual figures
Yep.
because it correlates directly to what we're asking from the town to move to us. The floor needs to be raised. Like, I'm so tired of the floor you're going to raise the floor. Yes, we need to raise the floor. And we need it because it's not because we're spending more on frivolous things. We're spending more because we have less from all of our funding sources. So to me, that it's less about this and more about supplement what we need, because this is not about our arts. This is not about our music. This is not about everything else we're going to go over. This is about our benefits that we don't control. So to me, raise the floor. I'm going to keep saying that, just so we're clear.
I do want to, because I need to correct myself. That was, the 531,818 was for medical. So that's both health and dental. And then the 69,000 was in terms of retirees. That's the same increase, but into that bucket. So I misidentified the 69,000 as dental. That is incorrect, but both are included in those figures, but again, need to become more accurate based off of the trust's information. So while you read through this, again, most of these were things that were discussed in our last meeting. However, I will highlight or low light some things that were not discussed, which is in great detail was technology. Was not discussed in great detail, and my thanks to Mr. Snow and his team. Again, those are listed in order of bad to worse. Also, the next one after technology, town cost sharing, might look familiar, as that was brought up last budget cycle. And fortunately, last year, I believe that in terms of town tax software and some elements were taken on by the town in its entirety. So ultimately, the request for the town to absorb field maintenance is a new to FY27 conversation, and that is about $100,000. The one piece that I would add into that is that we're trying to be, and I believe we are as collaborative as we can be with the town, given this, given everything that we're having conversations and we're looking into other things, and that kind of open door. We've turned over facilities You know, again, it's all the same money. Again, we all want South Kingstown to be the best it can be and have different ideas of how to get there. But what I would say is that, you know, we're doing, what we're not doing is we're not necessarily billing the town like they bill us. Again, in the spirit of collaboration, whether it have been for the turning over of the property on Columbia that we did earlier this year, or turning over schools and not having those go out or be sold, and then having the revenue go towards the capital improvement of the existing buildings. You know, what I would highlight, and again, I hate to bring this up because again, I thank the town so much and am deeply respectful, have deep respect for the departments that are there. But we're currently sharing Asa Pond Road, where we've opened up so that the town's facilities director doesn't need to be in the police department, and he can be around his crew and be in the Asa Pond facility. But we're not, you know, we're not asking for anything in return. We're not saying, well, half the building, give us half the costs and cost share with us. So it's that openness of that we have, that ultimately in terms of this cost sharing is, you know, it is something that I would like to think could be potentially extended as we have done, especially as we move forward.
I just want to make a comment on that because to the taxpayer, it really doesn't matter who's paying for a crossing guard. It costs what it costs, and how we allocate it is arbitrary. And so it doesn't really matter if the town is paying for it or if we're paying for it. To the taxpayer, it's the same dollars. So I think it's more than fair to ask for the not to do the allocation, because it doesn't affect the taxpayer. The only thing is it's a 1-year hit to the town because they're putting that cost on us. But if they take it back, you know, they have options to fund it. They could raise the tax levy, they could use fund balance, they could make other cuts on their side of the ledger to take these things over. Again, to the taxpayer, it doesn't really matter because it's the same cost, and no matter how it's allocated. So they heard us last year and took some of them. So maybe that will be another area where they'll be willing to look at it. I hope so, because I really would like to have a constructive conversation, that we look at these challenges together and find a solution.
Thank you. The other aspect of that's on this sheet is just new because it was brought up by Mr. Shear last year. And again, based off of the aspirations that we have for the new South Kingstown High School to bring in out of district CTE students and increase enrollment. We did have discussions last year about we didn't have an advertising budget, and that heck, if we put the cost of just even one out of district student into our operating budget and get it back, it's budget neutral. But again, that's currently an FY27 proposed a $20,000 increase. So, and it's something that we've historically lived without. So again, with everything being on the table and trying to stay away as much from people who interact every day with students, it is another cost that is new to FY27 that I've added to this list.
Just want to ask, what are, you know, we have all these cuts in front of us, and we know the town added $1 million to the transfer in the preliminary budget, and we asked for 2.5. Where do we stand now? Are we still at a $1.5 million deficit? And these wouldn't even get us to that $1.5 million.
That is correct.
So where were we?
So we need to we need to see if they will give us a greater allocation. And then we have between the things that we have on this list, we have fund balance, and then we have getting into potentially personnel cuts that work every day indirectly and that are required, but we would need to make cuts in order that would cause the caseloads and or the student load to dramatically increase. And we would not be able to be consider equity. At that point, it's not about equity, it's about class sizes and contractual limits and trying to make a budget number, not the students with the greatest need.
But at the same time, it's impactful to our students, right?
Right, and that's why, those cuts are on the back in terms of whether it be going to administration and exempt employees and seeing if anybody is furloughs, renegotiating contracts, working on that has not gone into this aspect, as well as further personnel reductions. But again, anytime which is on the back of this, I haven't been able to break those down completely. Again, we're still getting retirements in and looking at different breakages that are going there. But again, so I again wanted to put before you, before I kept diving deeper into those things, is make sure that this budget matrix reflects what the committee was looking for in terms of information, as well as moving forward. We would continue, if that is the case, we will continue to move forward with those other potential cuts. Should we, again, this gets us to 1.1. We're going to need to get more.
It's concerning when we start talking about personnel cuts as well, because for the folks that are left behind, they have to pick up that slack, and now they become overworked and underpaid, right? So, I mean, which is ultimately why we're here. We're talking about budget. We're talking about money. I did have a direct question to the after school opportunities, because our graduation rate comes up very often in our conversations with the town. And so my question about the cost for the program, does that include the staff? That's to pay for the staff, right? That's not curriculum or anything like that.
Yes, that is correct. And that is at the high school level only. So when we did this exercise last year, what we were recreating is summer enrichment and summer programming from elementary, including elementary, middle, and high school, that we were using ESSER dollars in FY24 at that point. And so as we went through the budget process last year, we landed on just the high school for credit recovery due to the high stakes nature of it. Yes, and so those are that cost is associated with people to design and deliver in terms of whether it be online or local curriculum. Those are included or already there as that is the district. We've assumed those costs during the course of the school year.
I just want to circle back and echo what Kate had said earlier, a point she was making. I think it's worth repeating that we're in this position because of lost state revenue. We're in this position because of the 608,000 that's not available this year. We're in this position because our benefits have gone up, and we're not increasing costs. And other than benefits, those expenses go up. It's not, we don't have a lot of fancy programs to cut. This is like core stuff that students rely on. And I think we really need to hammer home the point. Like, this is not a good position for us to be talking about these cuts. I think it's not what we should be doing. We should be really pushing to get that floor raised and get these programs funded, because this is what is the heartbeat of our community here. And this is really what the town should be spending their money on, is the students in the future. So, I mean, I'm loath to even go through this. I appreciate the work that the superintendent did. It does, I think, really highlight the position we're in. And we're not going to be getting to 1.5 or 1 or even 500,000, making a few small, it's significant cuts, it's significant impacts. And I don't think it's what the town people, community, certainly not the district, wants to see for their students. So I think I just want to hammer home that point. Like, we're in this position because of things that are outside our control. And that's where the ask comes from. That's where we're saying this is what it takes to educate our children, educate them well in a place that they want to be in. And I think that point just needs to keep being hammered.
And I'll follow up with it in 2026, because a lot of these, if we make these significant programmatic changes, we're sending our students back to when I was in high school. Even floating the idea of a junior high model, that's back to the 80s, folks. Like on a cart, we're going back to the 90s, maybe early 2000s. Like, this is not 2026. This is not boosting our graduation rate. This is not closing the achievement gap, because all of these high impact on our most vulnerable population, the ones we're trying to target, the ones that we're trying to raise up, and the impact is going to hit them the most. So to me, do you want to see our classroom sizes filled? We get that question asked all the time by the town councilors themselves. They're like, well, what's the equity in the classroom? Well, it doesn't matter if we're reducing our programs and of course our staff to make up the money, because now we're looking at maxed out elementary school classrooms, and we're looking at completely outdated back to the 1980s and 90s. And well, yes, I had a great time in middle school and in junior high and high school. It was not my kids get a far superior education than I did. So I would have loved a team unit to go through junior high with, instead of being sent to the stage every day because I was in trouble all the time. But it really, it's impacting our most at-risk learners. And that is completely contrary to what the town council and the community expect from us to be doing as a school committee. And I think to me, we have to go back in and fight against it. It feels like we're over here sitting it feels awfully conservative. And I mean that from a political perspective. This feels awfully not blue. So to me, if our town council is supposed to be, what is their mission as town councilors in the town of South Kingstown? It's to fund our services, and it's to fund our public education. We're just like, had a conversation over the weekend. We're just like any other municipal organization that they're responsible to fund. They need to fund us properly. And I'm just going to keep, like, I will vote however we have to vote when it comes to voting for a balanced budget, clearly, but not without a fight ahead of time. So to me, it's pushing back and saying, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. We need our services funded, because this isn't bells and whistles. This is core programmatic changes that pushes us back in time.
Oh,
Carol's up.
so that's why I added the part B on the agenda, preparation for the upcoming joint town council school committee meeting, because I do want to go in having prepared the arguments that we need to make, because that's part of what we need to do tonight as well. So well said.
Just gonna jump in real quick because I wanted to piggyback on what Kate was saying over here, and just, the impacts of the after school, the elimination of the summer credit recovery program. It mostly impacts our marginalized students, and we cannot keep taking away from any students for people that don't or cannot see the need for an increase in the budget. Also wanted to just say that the the elimination of positions and taking away staff is also an impact on all of our students because, you know, we're losing personnel such as social workers. I mean, we're dwindling down to one, and that one is a floater. And, you know, we just can't keep going down that path. And I think driving home, you know, also the unfunded mandated stuff, which is some of the graduation requirements, such as language that starts in the middle school. Those are the things that we are trying to keep intact. And that is the reason why we're trying to get this increase so that we can keep all of these very important things intact. And also, I just want to acknowledge, you know, we do have some great teachers, and it's really important that we keep those teachers around, because if we want our students to thrive, we have to keep the bondage going between the existing and current teachers that we have to be able to do that. It's about trust. It's about moving students forward. It's about moving our district forward. And if we don't have the people that have been working so hard with our students to do all of that, then we basically have nothing. We won't even have students in the end.
I just want to say first to the community, given that it's not a recognition night and we still have a very nice crowd here, we appreciate you being here. And as far as the town council meetings with us, just look next to you and promise each other to bring a friend. Just double it up, triple it up. We need people in that room. That's first. Nice job, Superintendent, on setting out this matrix. It's very clear. I guess I'm sort of up and down with the idea that we take such pride in some of the ancillary types of programs like athletics, like the arts, and we pound our chest and go, way to go to all the people who reach state level competitions and win them. And now we're talking about potentially eliminating them. Where do you think they come from into high school? They start early. They move through. And so it's a feeder system. And those are the kids who we want to touch. Those are the kids who we want to make sure are excited about that next year and the next and the next and the next. So we should just keep it all. And that's it.
We're helping you.
No, it's helpful. I think that, as Chair Vetter alluded to, you know, we do have the other in preparation. You know, if everybody's comfortable with the discussion here, or if we wanted to go through each one so that it can be publicly stated for those, again, okay. Or based on the committee, as well as go then how this could be or would be expanded and used potentially on the 6th and 7th, as well as
Let me ask a question
yeah.
though to our tech guys. Are we able to scroll as the superintendent goes through each item? Because I do want the public to see all of them. If we're able to do that, then I think we need to go through them
Okay.
quickly just to tell the public what each one, what's involved with each one.
So going through this budget matrix again, which was preliminarily presented at our last meeting. Again, these are not desired cuts. However, again, these are cuts where if or going through and having the BEP in mind where we have programming that may exceed the BEP. And so as such, and I've grouped them as the arts, again, also because of the grouping in the BEP. So under arts, the first potential cut would be reduced music electives at the elementary level. Essentially, there would be continued general music, but specific courses, band, orchestra, strings would not begin until the middle school level. In terms of our mission, equity considerations, it falls on the high impact. As school committee member Whitford brought up last meeting, is that is inequitable, in that leaves all of those lessons for those who can afford them in after school time or outside, and becomes a fiscal component. Then the next one is in terms of reducing music electives at the middle school with a 1.0 reduction. In either of these cases, in any of these cases, the fiscal impact or the personnel impact on existing staff, I will need to go back to the retirements to see if somebody, an additional position needs to be reduced, or if it's a vacancy that then just doesn't get filled due to a retirement. Reducing music electives at the middle school. Again, a position eliminated. Band, orchestra, and chorus could continue. However, the specific electives, piano and general music electives, are reduced. Again, that takes also in terms of the other equity considerations that I would already mentioned. It also gets into our core values in terms of voice, both for students and families. When we take away those elective options, as was alluded to earlier, some students, that's their motivation for coming to school. That's their choice, that they get math, science, their role in selecting their classes is being removed, and it's basically you will take. So that's why I also included voice in terms of the impact into mission and equity considerations. The next one in terms of BEP is world language. Reducing world language at the middle level. BEP states that you need to have 2 world languages at the high school level, but not so at the middle school language. I do have concerns. Once again, as committee member Whitford just stated, that we do have new graduation requirements in the state of Rhode Island that require at least 2 years of the same language. Getting exposure to different languages at earlier and earlier age groups is something that, again, would get us past the minimum, get us past that piece, as well as empowering students to try things ahead of time and know, once they do have choice or when presented with opportunities, what opportunity they'd like to take advantage of. Unfortunately, this would reduce it. The position would be eliminated. Grade 6 world language would be removed, and grades 7 and 8 would be limited to Spanish and French only. And ultimately, middle school French would be phased out. Again, I have high concerns about this, both in terms of the graduation requirement, as well as any preliminary. As we sat here a few months ago and talked about exploring the IB and expanding world languages into the elementary level, this is obviously a tremendous step in the opposite direction. In terms of athletics, in terms of the BEP, that can be fulfilled in a variety of ways. It does not always need to happen through interscholastic league sports. It can happen through intramurals. It can happen through clubs and extracurricular activities. As such, it is on here. Middle school sports is not required, and is approximately $74,000 for the coaches, assistants, and their stipends, as well as transportation. Once again, If we were to eliminate this, the main structure for students to explore would be that of travel teams and or recreation. Additionally, as we're about to invest $11 million or up to $11 million in an athletic complex, as we are looking to fill our athletic director position, cutting any of these sports, once again, is a step in the wrong direction and also pushes students to then those who get their identity through academics and athletics and extracurriculars, another reason to step away, not step into. As such, it's rated as high in both cases, as I firmly.
Interrupt it for 1 minute. just
Absolutely.
This is clarified. So, and our students would be able to go elsewhere for CTE, and then join that athletic team of their choice, correct? And then the money would follow them?
In terms of, yeah, in eliminating JV sports, there's currently no CTE mechanism in middle school. So our middle school students would face the biggest brunt of this, obviously, in eliminating JV sports. When you get to the high school level, CTE becomes a way for high school students to and their families to partake in school choice. At the middle school level, not so much.
I knew that. I was mostly going over to
Oh, for the
to
yep.
the high school side of it.
Yep.
Because I just wanted to, try and make it known to the public, anybody listening out there. In the event that happens, then that money follows that student to that high school of their choice.
That is correct. Not only is that correct, but those students who also then remain here as well, the practices, the opportunities for students to become varsity players, all goes away. The type of practices that our coaches and volunteers can run is totally different if you're looking just at varsity, as well as given the size versus some of the surrounding communities. If you only have one team and then don't have the ability to partake in JV, you could look at surrounding communities and say, oh, well, that pool of students that I have to compete against is even smaller and gives them another reason to look elsewhere.
And it also goes to the equity piece and it goes to the pay to play. So you eliminate middle school sports and JV, then our kids are they're going to find sports to play, but they're going to have to pay for it. And so we're now we're again splitting between the haves and have-nots. And all of this continues to split between the haves and have-nots.
That is correct. In the next bracket, if you will, after school opportunities, summer credit recovery is not required. However, it is in direct contrast to priority goal number 1, which is increasing proficiency rates as well as increasing or maintaining our graduation rates, especially as we focus in on the disproportionate impact of our student groups. Then in terms of eliminating the late bus, as well as extracurricular stipends that are beyond our contractual obligations. It is, whether it be a high impact for the eliminating bus service, because whether we still have athletics and you need a ride home, or need to get to different places, or you want to stay after for extra help. And how are you going to get home? You might need that late bus. Well, if I can't stay after because I live, closer to Richmond, that's not something I can stay after and walk to. So it also becomes in some cases, then I'm getting in the car with, or I'm just not going to stay around. So whether it be safety or academics is not something that we want to do. However, after school transportation is not required. And again, obviously cutting extracurricular stipends beyond what is contractually obligated is obviously not in the BEP. Supplemental support services. We have substance abuse counselors that are grant funded, but they are not 100% grant funded. And so while we get.
Can you scroll the screen a little bit?
So we do have local counselors, we do have our guidance counselors, our social workers, our school psychologists. So having substance abuse counselors through this grant, as much as we're grateful for it, is not included in the BEP and does go above and beyond. As such, I included it in this list. Again, anytime we're cutting adults that students can connect to, especially if they feel when they are in trouble or feel like they're in trouble or feel like they're facing something they can't do alone, we want as many of those adults as possible. And this would reduce that. And now as we scroll down to technology, again, goes again from bad to worse, where we defer phone replacement, which is $10,000, and our rotary phones, no, our 15 to 17, or our current phones, our 15 to 17-year-old, or 17 years old, excuse me. Obviously, we don't want that disrupted, especially as we don't have cell phones going on and we don't, in the state of emergency, we don't want people flooding certain things. But there is a risk of communication failure, and at certain times, especially as things are digital and need to work within servers, and sometimes when the internet goes down, phones go down nowadays. Not having the most up-to-date phone system at the most basic level is something that obviously, if we've lived with it for 15 to 17 years, pushing it off, unfortunately, what's one more year is kind of the choice that we're looking at here. Defer Broad Rock Middle School laptop replacement. Again, we have older devices, and while we are still one-to-one, it is one-to-one based off of classroom carts, as there is always enough devices for students in any classroom at any time. Going to a one-to-one model for those students and go, this is your one, you take care of it, take it around. We could reduce the number of laptops that we replace. However, these are not state-of-the-art devices. Again, they're 8 to 9 years old already. And if we were to implement that, that does leave out as they potentially get more usage outside of school, our ability to replace those is dramatically reduced. Defer network equipment upgrade. Here, much like the substance abuse counselor, deferring our network upgrade also has the potential for grant reimbursement, for it to kind of hit us with a double whammy, because often this network upgrade should be E-rate reimbursable. So the federal government E-rate program returns 50% on certain aspects of our technology infrastructure. So while it costs us $50,000, we would be getting back over time $25,000, where if we don't spend it, we don't get that reimbursed and get that upgrade. Again, the network, often, the power of what goes on in terms of technology is all the things you don't see. It's all the things behind the walls. It's all the modems and the network aspects. And then last but not least, although the most significant dollars, we would cancel the new laptops for grade 9 and kindergarten. Kindergartners we would go with the outdated or older iPads that we currently have. And in grade 9, we would be relying on our graduating seniors to be turning in those devices, and then making sure that our tech department is able to refurbish those and reissue them to the incoming 9th grader. So obviously, the condition of those when they get turned in varies dramatically, and then we would be expecting generally another 4 years of use out of that, the scope and scale of which, with technology, if anybody knows, is constantly evolving. And again, especially where the technology usage is its most prevalent and students can work independently, and they rely on that technology to get their aspects of their assessment as well as some of their instruction, is lost at the high school level. And as we scroll down, I alluded to this in my remarks earlier. We brought this up last year, and that would be cost sharing with the town. Again, request that the town absorb field maintenance costs. We do not have our maintenance crew does not work on our fields, whether it be Old Mountain Field or whether it be our practice fields. Those are all taken care of by the town, as well as that consideration in the Curtis Corner Athletic Complex moving forward. Is currently $100,000. I'm not sure actually what it's going to be in terms of an annual cost once we do have that new field and an artificial turf and a track and equipment with people who need to be trained on it and who, are going to be expected to or need to receive specialized training, what that potential fiscal impact will be. As well as then request the town fully fund public safety positions, our student resource officers and crossing guards, again, have become ubiquitous in many cases throughout school safety. However, they are not talked about in terms of required in the BEP and required for schools to have. They are also not positions that anybody in our organization oversees, is in charge of hiring, is in charge of any aspect of their oversight. And so as such, if it's public safety, again, if an emergency happens in town, they're gonna respond as they're directed. They're not going to stay in the school because of X, Y. They're gonna go where they're directed by the chief and by dispatch. It is not something that we control at the local level. And as such, one could make the argument that as terms of public safety would be appropriately fulfilled if that's the recommendation of public safety experts, is to have those positions, then potentially they could fall on that side of the ledger. And then coming on down to other, as I discussed, removed FY27 advertising budget. Again, trying to get those CTEs and bring back students or get other students to come to South Kingstown instead of going to neighbors to our north, south, east, and west. Removing that, as we have not had an advertising budget in the past 2 years. Again, we put in that dollar amount. That's the approximate amount of a out of district tuition coming in. And if we got even one student, it would be cost neutral. Reducing substitute teacher pay by $5 a day. This is actually the only one that is not assumed in that cost total. In the cost total, essentially, we would need to reduce it by $15,000 if we reduce substitute pay by only $5. If we reduced it by 10, that figure of 1.1, $1,177,120 would be off. So, but for every $5 we reduce, we get about $15,000 in estimated savings. We do not know the impact of what that would do to our subpool. That also would have implications potentially on if it has could affect our professional development and the ability that our coaches that we have and do a great job, but that are in the contract, their ability to work with teachers or to have teachers come out of the classroom to receive full day or go out even out of district to professional development is potentially reduced. So that is a true teaching and learning, as well as some of those who, again, make sure that they're in South Kingstown every day and that the kids recognize and see, as disappointed as they are when their teacher isn't there and as excited as they might be to see that friendly face. So again, our competitiveness is unknown at this time, but we would be below the average of our surrounding communities if we were to do that. And then last but not least, this is under development, and ultimately the pressure to develop these, especially as we look at a potential $1.5 million deficit. And if we continue to include the spending of fund balance, that becomes greater and greater, especially as if we were to take things off this list. I brought forward the idea of voluntary furloughs for administration and exempt positions, essentially reaching out to people if we would want to renegotiate contracts, if we would want to introduce certain things such as working virtually in return for pay cuts, or if people wanted an additional week of vacation and would do so unpaid. Again, these trying to come up with the best, worst ideas that we have, and again, trying to look at all aspects of solving this deficit. And then last and certainly least is for further personnel reductions that again is the highest of high in terms of our mission and equity considerations, because after yep. And so rather than put those out there now, and I don't want to be, we're not putting any of these things out there in order to cause panic or in order to, you know, for the sake. And so because they are every single position that we would be putting forward directly works with large groups of students, many of whom are in have the greatest of needs. We wanted to see where we would land to see if causing that consternation is necessary. And unfortunately, it may be so, but we will need further time to discuss those positions and make sure that as we put them forward, it's not something that, you know, the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back. And that is this, what is before all the committee members here this evening.
So I know that part of what we need to discuss tonight is the questions the town council had regarding our capital improvement plan. So is this the one with the very tiny print referencing the CIP? Could you go over that for us too, please?
Absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Proctor. Again, as we looked and watched over the town council meetings, as well as in terms of the questions, we are going back to the capital improvement piece to put out there once again, is that if the town were to take over or assume any aspect of doing capital improvements, that does not change our bottom line, does not change our cost of operations. Everything that we have in our budget currently is cost of operations. It is not cost of improvement of facilities. And so Mrs. Proctor has put together this spreadsheet for you. Again, this will go back to the memorandum of agreement under the construction bond from 2003. This highlights those projects that we are currently in play, as well as those that are stated, as well as the prioritization of things to get state reimbursement.
So this is not our projected CIP for next year. These are what we're doing to 2023 to date, correct? Okay, great. I just want to make certain we're all on the same page. So
correct. So these projects need to be completed prior to June 30th of 2026. So the top part of this chart shows the projects that have been completed already. The only thing it doesn't show is when they were completed, but they were completed. They are being submitted now to RIDE. So if you go to the far right-hand column, you'll see where it says submitted to RIDE. Those have been already submitted to William Tribble, and he has acknowledged receipt of them. So what these are is, back in 2023, there was an audit done. And it's done by school, and it's done by a general class of improvements. So they might say on some of the sheets, replace GFI receptacles. And they'll say one school, and they'll give a dollar amount. How they get the dollar amount is they do an average throughout the state of how much GFI, let's say 100 GFI receptacles, labor, the materials to replace them would cost. And then they use that as a basis. That does not mean that you're going to spend that whole entire amount. It just gives you a ballpark of how much that task to complete, that would be a cost to go by. So it might be a little higher, it might be a little lower, but it's an average. So when you look at this in the top section there, you'll see the school, you'll see the project type. So in other words, let's look at the first line. It'll say West Kingston. The project type is the exterior lot. And then you give a description of the project, which is replace, resurface, and reline the parking lot. The estimated cost is 406,690. The verified cost is 406,690. The status is completed and it was submitted to RIDE. This project is the project that had to be completed paperwork wise by December 31st, 2025, in order to be reimbursed next month, April of 26. 35% of that cost. So that's already done. If you go down the other lines, it's the same way. These are the projects. They've been completed, they've been submitted. Now, once you get to the line that does not say completed, but it does not say submitted to RIDE, those are the ones that were just signed off on today. The packages were all put together. They will be submitted on Thursday to RIDE. And Billy, once he gets them, William Tribble will acknowledge them. And then they will go into the total for what we are required to do, the 3% of our budget.
This is wonderful. I think this is exactly what the town council was looking for. What's been completed, what's been submitted, what's still out there. The only thing I think would be really great to have are totals for each of these. So what has been submitted? What is that total? What has been completed? That is, completed but not submitted.
So once we get down to the next section, you're going to see totals below. So the next section, which is your middle section, these, where it says Peacedale Elementary, Matunic, West Kingston High School, these 5 projects have been completed. However, those packets have not been compiled yet.
If I could ask the tech, if you would scroll down a little bit to where you just start to see the yellow right there.
Right there.
At line 27 through 31 is what I believe Mrs.
It's what we're-
Proctor's alluding to.
Yes. So this is what we're discussing now. These
So
projects have been.
I understand, but before we move on, do we have a total of what has been submitted to RIDE?
These projects where it says over in the extreme right-hand column, submitted to RIDE, they're going to be submitted to RIDE on Thursday. So all that down is going to be submitted to RIDE.
But do I have a dollar total? Like
Yes.
one total?
Once they're submitted to RIDE, the total will calculate down on the bottom.
On the verified?
Yes,
On the verified?
you
On the
have,
verified costs. So the first
Ver-
column of D, what else we'll see here, column D is the estimated cost. That's what RIDE has said will pay you up to for that project. And then the next column over, as people are looking here, is E, is
But
the,
if I add up row 1, 2, 3, do I have a total?
yes, ma'am. If you go down to the bottom there where the yellow is, Doug, if you can go down a little bit,
the verified cost total.
that's the verified cost, 1.184,614.68.
But you would like submitted to RIDE.
Oh,
Yeah, I think this would be more,
but there's more that say completed that are not in that
Correct,
total.
because those packages have not been compiled yet. They're going to be compiled on Thursday.
So maybe we need a different column that says compiled if we have some that are completed and some that really haven't. I just want to be really, really, really clear.
So
yeah, I agree with
that's
that.
where the ones in yellow come in. So once I get these packages completed,
That's not what's being asked. What's being asked is we want to see, and the town council want to see a total of line, the 400,669 plus 25,422 plus 214,890, all those added up. Like this is the amount that's submitted to RIDE. They're going to want to know what amount are they going to get back from the state. So we'll also need to know that number. What's that 35% look like? For the ones that have not been submitted, what we really want to see is when are they going to be submitted, or what the town council want to see. When are they going to be submitted, and what that reimbursement is going to look like, and when that reimbursement is going to come. So this is granular information, which is fine, but we need that compiled information, that total information of the dollar values, what we're going to get from RIDE, when we're going to get it. That's what the town council wants to see.
I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm confused because all of this that has been submitted to RIDE, right, as completed projects due for a reimbursement at 35%. We're not the ones that are gonna see that money coming back, right? So why should we do their homework?
Paula, that is exactly the point, because we're trying to set it up so that we get a fund. We're trying to work with them to get this money to come back to a special fund that we will use to fund future improvements to our buildings and infrastructure. So that's the exercise.
I get it. I mean, I totally understand, but like, just to really highlight the fact that these are all, what you see in here that's completed is all projects that have been completed and will be reimbursed by the 35%, which does not come back to the school committee. It goes to the town.
They're going to ask us of the money coming back, what are these things that we spent? When do we expect the reimbursement? So they have the information to set up the fund that we're requesting. So, and these are things that we're overseeing. These are our capital improvements. So, I mean, it's work that we need to do to answer their questions. And at the end, if they say, okay, this 35 reimbursement, we're going to put in a fund that you will use for the schools. That's a new concept that we're trying to set up. But Kate, I know you want to say something.
well, I mean, we get it. It's just, Paul, I get what she's making a point, right? So yes, there are projects we're submitting to RIDE. Then there will be 35% reimbursement, but it's sent back to the town. And quite frankly, the town should know that number, right? So once we've submitted it and we understand, but once we've submitted it, we're not tracking the 35% reimbursement. Brian Sylvia should be tracking it, or his team should be tracking it as it returns to him and goes into their fund. I also understand the point of doing it. We can hold them accountable by submitting it and saying, this is the date we submitted it by. This is the verified amount we've submitted it by. 35% of 406,690 equals bump, and it's going to get reimbursed back to the town and go into this fund that we would like put aside. So it's more of an accountability buddy. that we
And
need
for
to do.
planning tool, right? If we
Yes.
know what to expect, we know what we can spend and
Correct.
it's planning going forward. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's a good word. But I just, the first thing I want to do is be able to, have all the answers
Correct.
easily accessible. I think that's the first part.
Well, and I think your point of clarification is super important, right? So we just need a couple more columns, Pat. I think the big piece is we have the verified costs, we have that it's completed, we have it submitted to RIDE. And then if we can, get another column of 35% of those numbers equals and then total up. So at this moment in time, when we go back to the town, we can with fidelity say that 9, 10, 11 projects have been completed, submitted to RIDE at 35% reimbursement. There should be a chunk of this dollar that should be dropped into an account to help pay for the school's infrastructure.
And my apologies if this is clear already, but I just want to say that every single project that's listed here is taken directly from eligible. Each and
Yep.
every one of these is an
Is
eligible,
reimbursable.
is reimbursable. We didn't include capital improvement or maintenance projects,
Yep.
things that are ongoing that aren't reimbursable that also go towards our 3%. So everything listed here, once that verified cost comes in and that total will be at 30, should be at 35%. There may be some occasionally that if they involve, sometimes the state will come back and say, oh, well, that was for safety, or that was for X, Y, that's a 40. So we don't know,
Yeah,
because
that's-
again, we don't ever.
That's bonus. I wouldn't, I
Yeah.
would muck it up
No.
in the presentation though.
So again, we do anticipate all of these projects coming in, but again, for certain or many of these projects, it will be far less because, that what RIDE put out there, replace laboratory fixtures, $180,000. We're not going to replace every single laboratory fixture or spend 180. What we're going to do is repair and replace those that are needed. And so that might come out to, let's just say, I'm just making this up, $30,000, because we're also trying to be good stewards and use the infrastructure off of buildings that we no longer have, that we're replacing and being cost effective as well. So again, we won't get to every single thing. It's kind of like when we go through the capital improvement where we might have $20 million in roofs, but we're piecemealing those on a year to year aspect. But in terms of, we wanted to make sure that we have clarification, both in terms of projects that are underway in this fiscal year. What are we spending our money on? Where are we, to make sure that we don't have a repeat of that maintenance of effort, as well as, what that 35% will potentially look like. This attempts to get us there. And as we submit on Thursday, this can be this will be updated, assuming that we make those improvements, as well as, if we wanted to bring it here to make sure this committee found it useful, and or we would pivot.
So for clarity purposes, I'll wait for Carol. So for clarity purposes, first of all, I don't think we're acting irresponsibly from a fiscal point of view. If anything, we're being very civic and community minded about what we're looking for. As far as this and, in terms of what the town is looking for, there's 11 submitted, if you take all the submitted ones, and there's 16 not submitted. So if you take all of the submitted and put them in one column, right? And add all of those up, and then take all of the completed but not submitted and add all of those up, that gives a little bit more clarity to what they can expect now versus later, if that makes sense.
Can do that.
What's that?
We can do that. And I believe, as Chair Vetter said, also we can explore pivot tables to see, in terms of total projects, where things are, and
Yeah,
look to communicate it more efficiently,
yeah. And don't forget to number the pages.
and increase the font. Yes. Increase the font and number the pages.
Somebody was watching from home. Okay, to get back to your presentation, Pat, if you want to go ahead and talk to the ones that are still work in process, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. So in this column that's highlighted in yellow, these are the work in process. We have not started some of these. We have slated them to start in April. For example, the first one there, which is the Broad Rock Middle School roof, that will be started on April vacation. So that's a very good example. The estimated cost for that was 525,000. We know that the roof is going to cost us 518,000. So there's going to be a slight difference there. So when we were talking to the roofers, we can take that little bit of difference and go over to West Kingston and use that money to help with one of the repairs on the roof over there that had a major leakage during the winter months. So that's just a matter of sliding some money from one school to the other school, same roof, doing things the same way. Is just that we were able to save that little bit of money. So all these on the work in progress, as soon as we get dates of when they're going to be finished and completed a little bit more down the road, we'll know more after April vacation to see how far they get. Hopefully the weather will all cooperate as well. And we can pop out the Broad Rock parking lot, for example, which needs to be restriped and repaired. And then we should be in a much better place. The other thing that we want to be conscious of is to make sure that we're doing our 3% of our due diligence. So that's why I have two different numbers there, 3% of the total operating budget or 3% of the total town transfer budget. And I also want to make sure that we stay above where we're supposed to be. We cannot be below. We have to be above.
And we'll need to be above in order to make up that difference. Again, we've already submitted the West Kingston parking lot. The town RIDE, I believe, has already released those funds. They've released any holds on student housing, or excuse me, school housing aid because of that submission. But again, we have to be above the 3% because we have to make up for that gap for last year. So we need to land somewhere around 3.3%. We're waiting for Mr. Trimble to give us clarification if it's total operating budget or if it's including grants, or if it's 3% of the total town transfer or the local appropriation. And again, these are all capital improvements that are reimbursable. This does not include things in our general operating budget that will also be included and will help push us even further over that maintenance of effort.
This may have been addressed in an earlier meeting. I think it was, but I don't quite remember the answer. If the town was to take on the funding, like it's not coming out of our budget, but it's coming out of the town's budget, whether it's a restricted fund or some other fund that they use money from, does that count as towards that 3% maintenance of effort?
It would, just as when the bonds, the payments on the bonds will contribute towards our 3% as well, even though it's not coming out of our budget. So yes, if they were to take on a project and said, well, we'll take that on and we've got enough local staff that can do that, they take it on, that would still go towards our maintenance of effort. It's again, as the municipality takes it on.
Okay, great.
So just procedurally for tonight. So we went through the budget matrix and now we've gone through this. Do we want to make a statement as to the budget matrix as to, I know you had said like, what's off the table? Or do we want to have that conversation? Because I can suggest that what is off the table is anything that is a high impact, direct impact on students' equity, safety, or legal compliance, which would be a number of them, which would be our arts, which would be our world language, which would be our athletics, which would be 2 of the after-school opportunities, the specifically late bus service and credit recovery and the substance abuse counselor at the high school. If you've not had a child who's needed those folks, that would be a travesty to lose. I mean, all of them would, but in particular for a certain portion of our student population, that would be a travesty. I don't know if that's what you're looking for from us, if that's even possible to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know if we take it off here, you have to find it somewhere else. Like, I get that. So I guess I'm looking for some
I
guidance.
just want to answer it back a little bit. I am still very hopeful that the town council will hear us and will get more than the 1 million that they're now looking at, right? So I'm hesitant to talk about which of these cuts we will have to make because I'm very hopeful that they're going to give us some more funds. So, I mean, it's up to the committee what they want to do. Again, I think we needed these to know what's high impact because those are the last things we want to touch. Yes, I totally agree. But I'm also hesitant to have that conversation until we know truly, they put a gavel down on what they're really going to give us. That's my own feeling. I don't know how everybody else is feeling. I do agree with you that anything that's high impact would be the worst things to do. But we don't know how much we're going to have to cut yet.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that sentiment. I think it's, we need to know what we're working with to know what we actually need to look at on here. And right now, we're not sure. We don't know if the town council is going to come back and adjust their transfer or not. And I think until we know that for sure, it's going to be difficult to pinpoint anything on here that's should be. I mean, because look, as he's going through this, and this is not a list of cost savings. These are cuts. They're not, but they're not cost savings. These are going to cost the district. These are going to cost the district in reputation, cost the district in enrollment, cost the district in reputation. Everything is going to be student performance. These are things that their students rely on: credit recovery, substance abuse counselor. None of it can be really cut. So I don't want to have that conversation until we really have to, because I think I don't want to pit programs against programs here. It's all very important. Arts is very important. Music's very important. Counseling is very important. It's all high. It's all high. And I really don't want to have that conversation until we absolutely have to. I think it's good to highlight what we're really up against here and really have that conversation here, prepare for that conversation with town council next week. But to actually start carving things out and saying, where are we going to make a cut that's it's really going to be negative ROI for us, any of these. And I don't want to go that route until we absolutely are under the gun and have to pass a balanced budget that makes sense. So, I mean, I think that's my feeling on it. I think we have that deeper discussion if we have to, when we have to.
I think the best thing is that we are having this conversation right now, and we do have this metric in front of us for us to know what we are potentially looking at. We're kind of like Carol and you, James. I don't want people in the community to believe that we're putting out their taxes, right? Oh, they're threatening us with cutting these programs and stuff, because we have had that in the past where we had to say we have to cut these programs, right? And in the end, we didn't. I think we may have cut a few little things here and there, but I agree. I don't want to say that this is what we're doing right now. However, when do we wait for after the 6th and the 7th? And then we have another special meeting amongst ourselves to come to that consensus of what we are doing. You know, I want to be hopeful and, you know, hope that the town is going to hear us and help us and do what's best for our community, our students, our families, our teachers. Um, but we don't know that either. So we have to know when we're going to make these decisions, or we have to have a plan.
Great, and that's why I'm very disappointed that we don't have the special joint meeting that was supposed to be on the books tomorrow. I think I understand why we don't have it, but I still struggle with that because as someone who has sacrificed many a holiday, birthday, you name it, over the course of the past 9 years, I struggle with that, but that's a me thing. That said, it would have been nice to be able to have a more robust discussion with the town council prior to the hearings on the 6th and the 7th, because by then I feel like it's too late. I could be wrong and I'll happily be wrong, but I feel like it's too late at that point. So, because to me, I feel like those meetings they've already made up their mind and they're just going through the formality of having those hearings and then they put the gavel down and that's that. Like I said, happy to be wrong and I defer to you guys with that. I don't want to have I don't want to have this discussion at all. So, but I also want to be clear that over the years, we've been very clear of like what's a non-negotiable for us, because to your very clear point, we will lose millions more dollars because that CTE line, that charter school line will continue to grow. And we're working so hard to reduce that line because that's where it all is. That's where it sits. And we've done so much work over these past 3 years to slow it down, try to reverse it, and just having these conversations puts that line at risk. So.
The only other aspect that I would bring up is what I'm looking for is in terms of, you know, in terms of a presentation, you know, whether it be one, we brought up the CIP because there was lack of clarity or just talk of lack of clarity as well as requests for more information. And so we'd be putting that out. If while this is, you know, not what anybody wanted in terms of what we want to be discussing, but in terms of a format, what I also, while I'm hesitant to move forward to put more things out there and cause unnecessary consternation, I do want to, again, we're not at 2.5 yet. And ideally we would be at 3.5 because we wouldn't be using fund balance for operations. And quite frankly, we actually wouldn't be at 3.5, we'd be at 3.9 because we still haven't factored in the $400,000 of healthcare. So all of these added up again is 1.1. Should we work this into a present or be presenting this information? And if so, is this the right format to do it? And should we continue with that under development? Should we continue to build those out for use on Monday and Tuesday?
So one thing, we do presentations at joint sessions. 6th and 7th are joint hearings, which is us and the town council being there before the public, for the public to come and ask questions. So Kate, do you remember if there are presentations at a hearing?
Think there's like a quick review of what was talked about, just in case someone has just joined at the hearing. Usually people come to the hearing because they've been paying attention and then they want to ask questions, but I think there's like a general review, but it's not hashing out. It's typically not hashing, which is why I think it's too late. Because we need a hashing out with them.
No, I agree. I was disappointed that the meeting was canceled as well. I think they might have been able to move it, not cancel it, but you know, it is what it is. I mean, it would be great if we could have a presentation, have another chance to say our side. I think we could ask for that. And so, I mean, it's an ask and they may not say yes, but I think it's fair to ask. I think I'm okay with presenting what's presented here tonight. so that they see what everybody else is seeing? I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think they need to see what is on the table, what it is we're dealing with. I think we really need to clarify and really highlight things we talked about earlier about the reduced funding from the state, reduced aid, the 600,000 that's no longer there. We need to really hammer that home and just, in conjunction with this presentation or this information, say we're looking at this because of things outside of our control. We're looking at this because we can't make ends meet otherwise. We can't balance the
Right.
budget without.
We
being
need that
drastic.
recap of, look, this is the revenue we're losing. These are the increases in expenses. And then because of this extreme challenges, these are the cuts we are considering. And then present this because the CIP, because that's where a lot of questions were coming from. And I think that's fair.
So ultimately what I can do or attempt to do is lead off with an update since our last joint meeting and present any of the information that has caused substantial change, whether that be number of retirements, whether that be bids come in. Okay, here's the healthcare and dental numbers as based off of the trust numbers, not in the preliminary budget, but in what we're actually facing. So I'll see how I can mold those into one and or have them at the ready for people. So, or present these as things for potential discussion as they were areas that people wanted clarification on, that we are providing these supplemental resources based off of our knowledge of their concerns.
Can I suggest also the
Please.
under development piece, if we could explore some more of that, because as I said, so let's say, okay, we're not touching XYZ. You're gonna have
Yeah.
to find that money somewhere else. So where else can it be found? And I know, Rory pointed out the Curtis Corner minus, which was a lovely show. It was wild that the town manager had that number right at the top of off the top of his head. When we didn't, yeah, like that was wild.
80,000.
$80,000.
Okay.
So like, do we have that? Is that under development? Like, do we know are there other things, are there other places that we clearly haven't thought of, because I wouldn't have thought of that, but clearly Rory had. So are there other areas that if we don't reduce the 83,000 number here, is there somewhere else where an 83,000 number might possibly be reduced in? Again, what's the impact? High, moderate, not that kind of, because what I don't want to go in and say like, this is all we have. And if we don't get the funding, then this is all, clearly the message is this is all going.
Right.
I want to make sure that we have a plan B.
Well, and that's where trying to walk that fine line with further personnel reductions of causing that, but at the same time then going, well, you didn't tell us that was,
Right.
so had we known that, so, and that's, again, the main thing being if this is helpful, and then we will continue to build it out as we think of other bad ideas, best worst ideas, to try and get to, or as well as just some of the upfront, this is, no, we don't want to do any of this, but we will have to, because we have to have a balanced budget.
I think it gets hard to talk about personnel reductions. Yeah, we're talking people's livelihoods. I'm for keeping it vague. I don't want to have those discussions either. Yeah, if we can think of something else to add, let's try to, think of everything we can. Like you said, everything is on the table. But would somebody like to make a motion to reopen public comment?
I'll make a motion to reopen public comment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. If anybody, after hearing our conversation, would like to come to the podium, we will keep you to 5 minutes. Come on, Katie. You are. Just no more than 5 minutes.
This,
Just say your name.
oh, sorry, Katie Garvin. This might be a total like duh, everyone who's listening, but one of the things we have to be super mindful of around some of these cuts, like especially at the elementary school level sports, things like that, is we're talking a lot about how to keep bodies right in the district. And we're also talking a lot about how our funding was impacted by the raising in, the town's wealth percentage and all that jazz. People who have the ability to go seek private education so that their kids can have those activities will do that, and nobody would really, you'd go, okay, yeah, that's what gets your kid excited and gets them out of bed. And so then to Kate's point, where we're just further widening that gap between our families that have and our families that struggle, that would be a real concern, especially because statistically it's not super likely we're going to get those kids back then in high school. So I know there's a lot of numbers about the CTEs and there's a lot of numbers about the charter schools, and we're not paying a portion for kids to go to private school, but it is bodies and seats that we're losing out on. So I think we need to be super mindful that that's a big piece of it too. And we really want to keep our keep our families feeling excited about being able to stay in the schools. So I just want to speak to that point, that obviously losing something like as simple as sports at the middle school would be a huge deterrent for anybody who could just say, okay, we're out of here. One thing I just want to throw out there, relative to all of this too, is that when we talk about like where's the money going to come from, and from the town's perspective, I think it's super, super helpful to listen to you explain that, reimbursement money goes back to the town, and just trying to help people understand what the school district is actually holding in terms of the money. Because I think when you go to the town council meetings, often things are said like, we're going to give the schools whatever they need. We're going to tell the schools that if you come back to us, we're going to give you whatever you need. But it doesn't seem like there have been things that have been sacrificed over the years. When we look at, there's buckets in the hallways at the primary wing at West Kingston Elementary School. Clearly, we can't just like call the town and be like, hi, can you fix the roof? They're putting rubber ducks in it so it's cute for the kids. So we need to be mindful of the fact that sometimes people only go to those meetings, and that's the only thing they're hearing is like, well, they're going to give the schools whatever they need. So I think it's just really important that we everybody, one of you said it, like bring a friend and make your friends bring a friend next week. And I don't know if you can answer this question, but if there's any way we could we could know to spread the word, whether both meetings are like equivalent in terms of like what's happening Monday and Tuesday. So if we need bodies in the room, we need them both nights, I assume. Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Doral?
Hi, I'm Ashley Weeks. I am a teacher at Broad Rock, a parent of a graduate. I graduated ahead of Kate, and a resident. I just had a clarifying question. When you said you don't, did you say that you don't want to discuss personnel reductions at the town council meeting?
Yes, that I said I am all for keeping it vague. The way it's written now, I don't want to have to discuss it. That is exactly what I said.
Okay, my follow-up question is, but to me, it sounds like originally the personnel reductions were related to potentially moving Broad Rock back to a junior high, correct?
Yes and no. I mean, there are various possibilities. And again, it's difficult to discuss in an open session because it's people's employment. And I'm very cognizant of that.
Okay.
But everything is on the table. So when we did have going back to a junior high model, depending on how much cuts we have to make, it could be.
Right. And so I think that needs to be clear to the town council and to the public, because I don't think the town council wants to see us go back to the 70s and the 80s either. And I think we're missing a big part of teaming is that social emotional connection with these kids. There is no way if I teach multiple grades and add additional classes that I would be equipped to handle the social emotional. And those kids are going to fall through the cracks. That's number one. Number two, I also don't know that you're thinking what's best for kids. My certification is in elementary and middle school. I've taught middle school for 24 years. My first year of teaching was elementary school. Believe it or not, I'm low man on the totem pole. Do you want me teaching elementary school? I will have no idea how to do that. I would have to relearn everything. That's not what's best for kids either. And I think that's really important to really understand the scope and sequence of what's happening. And I know that you support, and I really appreciate it. I know you want those dollars, but I think it's important to say, if we do these reductions, this is what it's going to look like potentially.
So, and it's a hearing, so they're going to listen to the public. So that's why I encourage you to come and advocate
Oh,
for
I'll
these
be
things.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
It's Torrell Beasley. I think not all of you, but some of you know that a handful of years ago, I started a petition to reduce the school funding 1 year by, I can't remember what it was, maybe it's $1 million. Went to a referendum. We had the vote over at the rec center. Okay, on that day of the vote, it happened to be, got over there in the morning, parked my car over by the senior center. A couple hours later, I went over to get something out of my car. My car was, it had sprinkled like a little rain for a few minutes. My car was covered with blotches of brown gunk all over it. What I found out that night when I got home was that that was the first of 3 or 4 days when the wildfires in Canada, the air quality from those fires had come south into New England and ended up in Rhode Island. That was one of the 4 worst days for air quality ever been measured in Rhode Island. Okay. That morning and that afternoon, there were students from this school district playing instruments in front of the wall as people went by to vote in the rec center. They were playing instruments. I used to play a French horn. You take a lot of deep breaths when you play a French horn. Those kids that were playing those instruments, those woodwinds and those brass instruments, were sucking that air in all day long. They shouldn't have been out there. Okay. So this is the reason I bring that up is this. You have 3 meetings between now and when the budget's finalized. So you have the 6th, the 7th. I don't know if you guys do the 6th and the 7th, or it's the municipal the 6th and you the 7th, or whatever. And then you have the 27th. But here's what I ask. Do not use students as props. Don't use our students as props at those meetings.
Thank you, Doral. Does anybody else wish? Oh. Oh, welcome, Christine.
So press the button and just say your name, please.
Yeah. Oh, good. Sorry, I'm not good with buttons. So I guess I'd just like to speak to,
Can you just state your name, please?
my name is Christine Pierce. I'm a music teacher for 25 years at elementary. I know that this is really difficult for you. There isn't a single person out here who doesn't get that. And I think that everything you've presented has been really clear. I guess I'd like the town council to know, so I will be showing up, that we need as many adults facing children as possible. And I know that all of you up there know that. It isn't a particular area. Am I sad to see strings up there again? Yeah, well, I'm going to come up here and talk to you about it like I have 22 times. But it's not just about strings or chorus or band. It's about the human beings that face our kids every day and that know them. I really appreciated Katie's comment about the UAs, knowing them from the time they're little. I know them now from pre-K on through. The things that they're doing in pre-K in combination with our 5th grade students are phenomenal. It's just more people in front of children is what we need, not less. And I feel for everybody, all of my colleagues who might find themselves possibly not having a job next year, but even more than that, also not necessarily doing the job where they're making the most difference with kids. It's something that hits me every time I look at these cuts. What I'm doing right now would not compare to what I would be doing next year if these cuts go through, because I spend so much more time with children than just with the classes that I teach. You get to know them, you make relationships with them, you know them in the hallway. That all takes time. It's not just the time that you're teaching. And I think everybody here, that we all know that. I don't want to see anybody gone because we already don't have enough people facing children. And I guess my question is, and I know I'm just kind of confused as to how it is that the town council can't be more clear about that. You guys have done everything to reduce. We don't have any place to put all the things in our buildings that have come from the buildings we closed. I don't think there's a lack of effort here. And I know there's not a lack of effort on the part of the professionals every day who love and nurture and worry about these kids. So these cuts will be detrimental to all of them. And there's so many dealing with trauma, dealing with all kinds of worry in their life every day. When they come into us, that's a safe space. I will be less of a safe space next year for them if these cuts go through than I am at the moment. And I can say that to the town council. I'm not sure how to help them visualize it. And sometimes I think that's part of the problem, is that people just can't see it because they don't live it. So anyway, I could babble all night, but thank you to all of you. I just hope that all of us get to continue to be in front of these kids as much as possible because they need us.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? With that, we will close public comment. Anybody else on this in the committee want to say one last thing before we close?
Yeah, before we close, I just want to say we have the 2 meetings with the town council next week, the 6th and the 7th. Beyond that, there's a ability to submit petitions to the town for revisions to the preliminary budget due at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, April 21st. And then the town council will then take those up and vote them up or down. And then beyond that, there would be potential for referendum petitions for Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. So just want to put those dates out there for anyone listening to understand that these are the town charter dates that the public has available to them to petition and potentially have a referendum up or down on anything in the budget. So just putting that out there.
And just to make it clear, the referendums notoriously are to reduce, but they can be to increase. So it just has been in the past, ours have been to reduce, but people can come up with a referendum to fully fund and increase. So thank you for reminding that, James. I'm happy to make a motion.
I'll make a hey, I'm back. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned. We're adjourned at 8 o'clock.